Okay, we're good?
No, not yet, not yet.
Not
I'll
yet.
let you know.
Okay.
It's not as quick as we want to be. Okay. Yes, now it's live. Okay. Okay, so Itty.
Yeah.
So you started
Sarah,
with a little anecdote.
Sarah,
Ja.
moet je niet ook nog recorden? Want dat staat niet aan.
Nee, maar als het op Facebook, dan is het automatisch.
Oké.
Dankjewel. Dankjewel. Okay, so Itty, you started with a cute story. Yeah, now we want to hear some more about your youth.
Okay. So as I said, we grew up in Crown Heights, and we had many, many fun times and special times. One of my favorite times of the year actually was Sukkot, when every house on the street had a sukkah, and there was just a feeling of the holiday, and almost like in Jerusalem, not exactly, but pretty close. And it was really special, but Sukkot was even more special than other holidays, because when I was a child, there was an initiative that every night of Sukkot, there was dancing in the street to celebrate. And we were so lucky because the dancing took place on the corner of our house. So just 6 or 8 houses away from our house was the corner, and that's where everybody would meet to dance. And they closed off the traffic on the 4 streets that met on that corner, and there was dancing literally all night. And if I kept my window open, even when I had to go back home begrudgingly because it was getting really late, but the dancing continued till 6 a.m. If I kept my window open, I could still hear the music, I could still hear the singing. And it was definitely my favorite week of the year. You know, in addition to our own sukkah and our own guests that we would have, you know, having the dancing on our corner was always a big, big highlight. So that's just, you know, one of the great highlights. But of course, there were many. Every holiday, there were so many guests, and the synagogue would be filled with people from everywhere. And everybody would come to enjoy being in the presence of the Rebbe, and his joy and his leadership and everything that he spoke about was always so enriching and uplifting and filled our lives with meaning. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity that I got to experience.
Yes, that's for sure.
So now that I shared how he tricked me, my big brother, I'll tell you one time that he really went out of his way and really changed my experience of that particular time. It was in 1987, I believe. And Chabad was going through a challenging moment in our history. There was a court case against the Chabad library. I'm sure you maybe have explored it with your Rebbetsin in the past, or maybe she will next time, but it was a difficult time. And finally, after many months of praying and hard work and anticipation, the court case was the verdict was released, and Chabad came out victorious in this court challenge. And the verdict came out, it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. And my brother, Rabbi Katzman, was in yeshiva. And they, of course, got the news the minute it came out. And I won't even tell you what happened in that yeshiva room, but they were in the middle of a test. Pens were flying, papers were left right where they were, and they all dashed out to celebrate the big news because it was a very big simcha, it was a big celebration. But my brother took the time to call home and let us know the good news. And I'll tell you that 11 o'clock on a regular day, no one was supposed to be home because my parents were away working and I was supposed to be in school. He didn't know that I had a cold and I didn't go to school that day. So he called the house to give us the good news. And I answered the phone. And till today, I'm so grateful that he called, because I was able to be there. My cold was gone. And I ran out in the street along with everybody else who met in the synagogue, in the shul. And it just was the beginning of a huge celebration. And thanks to his call, I was able to be part of it. So he didn't only trick me, he also did good things.
Okay.
So that's a little taste of our growing up home.
Yeah. And maybe you want to tell us a little bit about what you learned from your parents.
Wow, that's a big one. So our parents both came from Russia, and they lived through in their youth some very, very difficult challenges, and miraculously were able to get out after the war. And through many years of traveling from one DP camp to another DP camp, finally made it to America, and were finally able to start piecing their life back together and to build a new home. So it was always very, it's like awe-inspiring to have that strength to really pick up pieces of a broken life, of a broken family, and to just rebuild a new family, a new home, a new country, a new language, a new culture. And through all of these changes, maintaining a very strong faith and dedication to their Jewish education, their Hasidic education, and passing that on so warmly and beautifully to all of us children. I'm actually the youngest of 8. So thank God we're blessed with a large family. And thank God our parents were able to really instill with us their dedication and love of Judaism, of Torah study, of the Hasidic energy and insight that we 2 of them, yeah. Sorry. I know, I only need 2. Yeah. So they, they didn't really teach it to us through speeches, but rather through their life and through their stories. I can't say that they shared many stories. Later years, they shared a little more, but just from knowing that everything they've been through and how they were able to maintain whatever little opportunity, as soon as things were calm enough, there was already a school set up for the children. I mean, in their early years of traveling, not traveling, but escaping war fronts, right? As soon as, always the stories were about how when somebody was settled, they were looking for other people to help. And one of my favorite stories was how, they found a little, you can't even call it an apartment, a little place to live as they were running away from war and trying to dodge the communists and, such difficult years. And other people were also escaping, and they were already a little settled. So they would always invite people over for a little something to eat and a little advice how to get settled in this new place. And the home was already filled with already other people, and more people came because this was wartime. So they were invited in. So the guests are like, where are you going to put us? You're full. They said, oh, don't worry. There's room on the table and under the table. Wherever you want, you could find room. If it means that we're going to help someone in a time of need, that's what we're going to do. So that was, a really inspiring anecdote without a lecture that just showed us how dedicated our way of life is the foundation of our family to be, really of service to our community, to our friends, to our new friends. We had a little sign in our kitchen It said, there are no strangers here, only friends we haven't met. So that was, you know, one of our lessons.
Yeah, well, that's that shows a lot. That's very important. Actually, I'm reading now the book of about your grandfather.
Yeah.
Your mother's father.
Father's father, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess another time we'll go more into that. But it's amazing what he did for his fellow Jews in Russia to help them, and it's unbelievable.
What was his name? What's the book's name?
No, it's not an official book that's published. It was whatever, for a bar mitzvah of one of the great grandchildren. It was put together. It used to be articles that were published in the Kfar Chabad magazine for many years, and that was collected and bundled, let's say. So it's the life of Reb Chaim Chanin. So yeah, the time in Russia, it's for us very difficult to understand. Like, as a Dutch person, I grew up, you know, the knowledge of the war. That was something that everybody, you know, knew about, or, you know, not too much, but we knew about it. Now, my mother escaped the same route as your father did and as your mother did, etc., from Russia. But my mother was very small, so she didn't remember anything from that time. And, you know, you grow older and you hear more and more stories. And like what you're saying, the lesson that it gave you without saying anything, it was so clear for you as a child, you know. And yeah, I mean, from the moment I came into the Katzman house, I saw it all the time. You know, whenever I was there were always people, always guests. There was room for everybody. Sometimes it was like, how are all these people going to fit in this house? But it always worked. So yeah, I have been also part of seeing that. Okay, now you want to tell a little bit more about what you did in your youth, or you want to continue once you're married?
Whatever your guests.
No, usually we hear a little bit like about school, about going to seminary, and just a little bit until we come to the place where you live.
So in a way, I was very boring. I didn't travel for school. I stayed in Brooklyn. But actually, for me, it wasn't boring at all, because it was the hub. It was the headquarters of Chabad. So, like I said, it was the heartbeat of the international Chabad community. So even staying in one place, I was able to meet so many people and really be present at so many very, very special opportunities. So that was definitely a big highlight for me. And that's why I didn't even think about traveling anywhere, because I was just exactly where I wanted to be. But even within that, I did get to go to camp during the summer when we had vacation. So I did do summer camps in different states, in Michigan and in California and in Louisiana, New York, of course. So those were always learning experiences, because I got to work with the Chabad representatives in those cities, and again, witness firsthand their dedication to their community, their love for education, and their commitment to any opportunity for education, whether it was for young children, for older children, for young adults, older adults, always looking for an opportunity to educate. And one of my favorite stories from camp, there were so many, but I remember the daughter of the director. She just turned 2. And, you know, she was always hanging around. She loved being with the counselor. She wasn't quite old enough to be in a bunk, but being the director's daughter, she had her way to be part of the fun. And one of the songs that we always sang as an educational fun song was teaching about the oneness of God. And the song goes, one is Hashem in the heaven and the earth, that there's one God in the heaven and the earth. Now this little girl's listening to this song and you could see she's very troubled. Finally, she was able to express what her problem was. She just turned 2, or maybe she was 2.5, I don't know exactly. And she said, Hashem is one forever? He's never going to be 2? And it was just such a wonderful moment of an innocent child trying to, wrap her head around something. To her, turning 2 was like the greatest thing that could happen in the universe. And she felt so sad that Hashem, God, was never going to turn 2. Of course, this was a learning opportunity, a teachable moment. And I'm sure that this girl who's now running a Chabad center of her own has evolved in her knowledge and understanding of, of God's presence and God's oneness. And that was just something really special.
Yeah, that's a very cute story.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay. And going to seminary, you also stayed in Crown Heights?
In Crown Heights, yep. I did Beis Rivka from beginning to end. I'm a Beis Rivka girl through and through.
Okay, but as you say, you're the youngest of the family, and
Yes.
all your siblings actually moved,
Yes.
to different places to go on shlichus. And I'm sure that you, as the youngest of the family, has visited all those places.
Yes.
Well, you didn't come to The Hague because
I
you were
came only
married
for
already.
your wedding. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then it's time
Yeah.
for a visit.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I remember our nieces telling in France that you used to come
Yes.
there, and we had one of them last week, Mina Gurevich, the oldest of the clan, and you were their favorite aunt coming to visit.
Yes,
So
I
how
definitely
was that for you to go to all these different places to visit your siblings?
that's a great question. And I remember one particular year, one summer, that it turned out that I got to visit everyone in one span of maybe 2 weeks. It
How
just,
did you do that?
there was, because I was in France for the summer. And then when I came back, somehow there was in the next 2 weeks, there was an opportunity to literally be with all of my siblings. And we have one in France and of course in Holland. And within the States, we have it in Omaha, Nebraska, in Charlotte, North Carolina, and in New York, in different parts of New York. And it was fascinating to me at the time to see the different kinds of communities that they live in and the different nuances that they have to focus on in their own home to maintain the education that they wanted for their home, despite the differences in their community. While some of them lived in religious communities, others lived in non-religious communities, they were creating centers, but each place had it. Some places, just getting kosher food was like a whole project to get it shipped and to have enough freezer space and to figure things out in a way that they could just feed their family kosher food. And other places lived in places where it was easier to get kosher food, but the environment was a little bit different. The education of the neighbors was a little bit of a different, different focus. So they really had to focus on helping their children understand what was important to them, even though not everybody with them, around them was practicing the same philosophy. So it was definitely really an eye-opening visit to see how, you know, the different families were working towards that goal.
Okay, so you had a very good preparation for after you got married and you moved with your husband to Michigan. So you had seen quite a lot of different communities. So do you want to share with us how it was when you came to West Bloomfield?
Sure, absolutely. So West Bloomfield is a suburb. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to visit American suburbs. I haven't seen, and my few visits to Europe, I haven't seen anything like it. Suburbs are very, very spread out. Even just the streets are so wide, and the lawns are so big, and the driveways are so big, and everything is very spread out. So just like right there, it was very different from the way I grew up in Brooklyn, where you could practically put your hand out your window and your neighbor puts the hand out their window and you can exchange ingredients for whatever recipe it is that you're making. Here, it's not that way at all. You know, even just the next door neighbor, it's like a walk, you know? The grocery store is at least 12 minutes by car. It's not like, you know, when I grew up, you walk down the street, and when you're even 6 or 7 years old, you could already run over to the grocery store and buy a loaf of bread because the grocer knows you and knows your grandmother and knows which brand your mother likes and which brand your grandmother likes, and you just have to pick it up and bring it home. So here it's very different. And there's, within these very spread out areas, you know, there are multiple synagogues, multiple Jewish centers. So for me, that was really a change. You never like take your purse and walk down the street and go somewhere because it's just not set up that way. I remember once I was looking for a store and I ended up in a little downtown. So they call it downtown, but it's about a half a mile. It's like nothing. There's a few stores and it's called downtown. So I remember I parked my car on the side of the street and I took my purse and I walked down the street from one store to another store. And I called my mother and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just walking down the street with my purse. It was such a different experience because usually you have to go to a mall and you park in a big parking structure and you're just walking around in a mall. So it just, you know, just physically the setup was very different. And everything, like I said, felt very spread out. But what was very, very fascinating to me was that even though as a newcomer, it seemed so spread out and fragmented, the more people I met and the more people I spoke to, the community was very tight-knit. Even from the multiple synagogues, even though, you know, people are different persuasions, you know, here everything is very labeled in America, right? There's Orthodox and modern Orthodox and Reform and conservative and ultra-Orthodox, and everything has a label. And on the outside, it looks very divisive. But actually what I learned inside was very interconnected. People really had strong relationships with each other and communities were intertwined in a very, very beautiful way. And it was something that really, you know, it took me a while to grow into that and learn that idea. But it was very exciting when I did learn that. And something else, which was, like I said, in New York, when I went to the grocery store, the grocer and the guy in the fruit market and in the fish store, they all knew who I was. And they all knew what exactly they would say to me. Are you shopping for your mommy or are you shopping for your bubby? And then depending on who I was shopping for, they knew exactly what to give me. And here, there's no small mom and pop shops. Everything is these huge supermarkets. And there's 28 cashiers and they have different shifts. And it just seemed, at first, it seemed so cold and, you know, just very different from what I was used to. But what I learned from some of my dear friends that I got to know over the years is that, you know, it's really in your hands to create a warm environment wherever you are. And I would see some of my friends go to these gigantic supermarkets and they would create a community right there while they were shopping. they would make friends with the cashier, even though you may not ever see them again, because you might not come at that person's shift, or you might end up at another aisle and you'll never meet them again. But there is a way, even within, by just having that warmth around you, I learned from many of my friends to create that warmth, even though it seemed so distant. It didn't come so natural like it did where I was growing up. But there is definitely a certain charm, a Midwest charm and innocence and beauty. It's also much calmer. Oh my gosh. I go to the grocery store here. There's so much place. There's so much time. Nobody's rushing you. I go back to New York now. Oh my gosh. If you just want to look at 2 brands of yogurt and figure out which one you want to buy, you get trampled by 15 customers that are behind you. They're in a rush. They're going. And when you get to the cashiers, it's like, chick, 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 you're out the door in 2 seconds. Midwest is not that way. Very laid back. Everyone has time, everyone has room, and it's just very different. But the fabric, the inner fabric is definitely the same. You know, we're all people, we all like people, and we all like to create community, and it just comes about in a different way.
Wow, that's very different. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, not everybody had the opportunity to go to the States, but as Dutch people, you just say in America, everything is big. Like, you know, nowadays they sell here American fridges. Yeah, because they are like wide like that, and it's not normal Dutch. But by you, it's even more big and relaxed and laid back than if you are in New York.
Very spread out, very different from New York. You can't even compare it. When we drive into New York and we come through the tunnel right into Midtown Manhattan, it's like your body has to go into a different mode. Your driving is a different driving, your breathing is a different breathing, your sense of awareness is different. You definitely have to turn on your New York mode or you're in big trouble.
Okay, and now about the Jewish community. Now, Michigan is a very big state, and there are obviously many Jewish communities. Is your community close to the biggest, which is probably Detroit?
So actually, people call it Detroit, but Detroit itself proper used to be a big community, and it really dissipated. And for many years, Detroit proper was really not a livable place, interestingly enough. But people still call the area the Detroit area. But actual Detroit proper experienced a renewal in the last 10 years. It's for after many, many years that, you know, nobody would go into Detroit proper. All of a sudden it became like a thing. And there was a big effort actually on the Jewish community, for others as well, but there were members of the Jewish community that put in a big effort to recreate the downtown and to give it a new life. Because the young people today, they're not so enchanted by the suburbs. The suburbs like 50, 60 years ago was like the new age. Now the young people, when they get married, they're not excited about a suburb, they want a city. So a lot of our people were moving to New York, to Chicago, and the older generation was not happy about that. You know, they wanted their grandkids around. They have these beautiful lawns. The kids could have so much fun. And here the kids are choosing to live in tiny New York apartments with absolutely no greenery because they wanted the city experience. So it's fascinating. We got to see it firsthand how the actual Detroit city was really experienced the rebirth. Now we have a Chabad in Detroit proper, which hasn't been for at least 50 years because there was nobody really there to service. So actually right behind me here, you see this menorah. This is a replica of a big, beautiful menorah that we built in downtown Detroit exactly 10 years ago. It was the beginning of the rebirth of the city. So we realized that that is where the excitement of the young people are. So we went and we built this beautiful menorah. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, good. This room. Yeah, thanks. Where was I? Oh, so we realized that the best way to celebrate Hanukkah would be to build a menorah downtown. And we didn't know what it was going to be like. It was really the first year that downtown Detroit was becoming alive again. We thought maybe 200 people will come, maybe 300. We were amazed as the time was coming closer, and there were over 600 people. The city was dark. We had to provide our own lights. We had to hire our own security guards because we were advised that it's not safe to be there. But the feeling of 600 Jewish people standing in middle of downtown Detroit, lighting a menorah was so beautiful. People described it as feeling like as if they were in Jerusalem. Because our community is so spread out, having 600 people in one place is really uncommon. But having everybody come downtown because it was so exciting was a sign of a light that was coming. And actually, the amazing thing is every year we've been back downtown for Hanukkah, and every year we're able to see the growth of the city, because after a couple of years, they said, you know what, you don't have to get a security guard round the clock. You could have them only at night. In the daytime, it's okay. And then after a few years, they said, you know, you don't have to have the security guard there all night. You could just have him for the event. You know, get extra security for the event when you have so many people. And the event has grown so beautifully. Over 3,000 people come to that event, and people just don't want to miss it. Now, you have to realize we're in Michigan. Some years our Hanukkah is very cold, but people don't want to miss it. It's just such a special feeling of being in the city with so many of our Jewish community, that we just have such a positive vibe. It's really, really special. And I had a couple pictures here. Maybe I could share them.
That would be great.
If I know how to do it. My tech support is in school right now. Oh, so this year, of course, we couldn't do you could see in the background right there, you see the menorah. I'll show you a better shot soon. This year, of course, we couldn't get together in person. So we did a virtual menorah lighting. But each year, our main message is that we don't just want people to come together for the menorah lighting and walk home feeling good. We want people to take the light home with them. So we call everybody lamplighters, which is, of course, the message of Chabad. So each year we select people from the community that are lamplighters, that represent a certain type of sharing, of bringing light to others. And we honor those people and we tell their story, and we encourage everybody to go home and be a lamplighter. So this year, together in person, so we had the lamplighters come down early and take pictures, one family at a time. This fellow right here, who was one of our lamplighters, together with his wife, he was, unfortunately, became ill as soon as Corona started in March here in Michigan. He was on a ventilator, I think he said, for 168 days. And miraculously, he recovered. And his wife was there with her faith and her courage throughout. And he utilizes his health now to tell people there's hope, don't give up. Don't, even when things are so difficult. So this was one of our lamplighters before the menorah lighting. How do I find the other picture? I thought I should have an arrow here. Here's another one. Nope, same thing. Oh, here it is. This was another lamplighter. You could see the menorah behind them. So this fellow is a doctor in the emergency room. So he also experienced a very challenging year. So he shared with us a little bit of how he found strength from the community, from his fellow doctors, to keep being positive, even though he witnessed He said actually his particular job, he usually got there when it was really too late to be hopeful. That was when he would come in the picture, but yet he still had to remain positive and strong. So he shared some of that with us. Let me see who else we have here. Oh, this is not Hanukkah, but this is just to give you a taste of Michigan. So we get a lot of snow. And this year people were locked in their homes for many months. Most of our schools were not open. So everyone was Zoom school and homeschool. So we were trying to find ways to get people out and to give them a little bit of a, a celebratory feeling. So if you see here, we did a story trail in middle. Look how snowy it is. Every family that registered came to their appointed time. And we set up, if you could see this tree here, we had a book that was along the trail. So you read the first page and then you walked along and you talked about it. And then you read the second page and you talked about it and walked along. And people loved it so much. It was like an opportunity for education, for just seeing each other for a quick second, even though each family went on their own. But you see in Michigan, nothing stops you. Even what is this, 2 feet of snow? You're gonna come out and celebrate with your family because that's how you gotta do it.
Yeah.
There should be another one here. It's the same one. Maybe this. And this was for Sukkot. Again, we couldn't invite people to our sukkah because everything was still in lockdown. So we went ahead, quickly rented a couple of trucks. You've probably seen these in Holland as well. Bought a few of these lattice things and built a couple of sukkahs on the back of a truck. And we went around visiting people with an opportunity for them to have a sukkah in the safety of their own driveway. And they, invited their pod, and everyone was able to do the mitzvot of Sukkot as well as, as this year took on its very strange reality.
Yeah.
Let me see if I have another one here. Oh, and this was so special. So this year with the Hanukkah event being virtual, so we wanted people to have a little bit of a hands-on feeling. So we packed 900 of these lamplighter kits. And every kit had a little, electric lamplighter and postcards, beautiful postcards, and a little blue and white cookie to get in the Hanukkah spirit, and some dreidels that were actually crayons, so they could play dreidel, but also use it to write letters to their friends. And 900 families drove up to pick up these kits. And we were amazed how every family, when they came, was so thankful that we were offering them this little box. Now, of course, it's not the actual box that was exciting, even though, it's nice to get a little gift. But it was the feeling of togetherness, knowing that all these people are going to have this box at home. And then when it's the first night of Hanukkah, we all log in to the virtual event, everybody has the same thing at home, the same candles, the same spirit, the same Jewish neshama. And everybody's, even though we're alone, everybody's celebrating together. And we really felt that by the drive-through when people were coming to pick up the boxes. And even more so during the event. There were over 30,000 computers that logged into this event, not just from our immediate neighborhood. I shouldn't say 30,000 people, not that many computers. If you average it out, that was the estimation. There were people from way up north, from lonely communities that don't have, their own celebrations. We had someone write in from Czechoslovakia. We had people from all over. And they just felt that the ceremony was so meaningful. It was the first night of Hanukkah, so it was like we're launching Hanukkah together. we're bringing Hanukkah into our city with this virtual event. And while we can't be together, we really are together. And these little kits really helped us to get that feeling out there. So, you know, this year we had to get creative, but it definitely gave us an opportunity to get to know ourselves and our friends a little bit differently.
Very nice.
Oh, so this was us packing those boxes. I just had to get a picture of the mountain of garbage that we had after packing all those 1,000 boxes. So yeah, that was kind of fun. Okay, any other questions? Oh, so you wanted to know how far we live from the community. That's where you started. So I started
Right,
telling you
right.
about Detroit. So once Detroit was kind of not really the hub anymore, it really was taken over by a bunch of suburbs. So now there's really a lot of little communities. Two of your sisters live here. Well, not quite in Michigan, but near Michigan. And each of them is a good, one of them is probably 40 minutes away from us and the other one a little more. Everything is really, really spread out. But I would say, like, if you're talking about where it's easiest to get kosher food and where the Jewish schools are, so that would be most in the neighborhood called Oak Park. And we are about 30 minutes away from Oak Park. So we're fortunate because we're able to drive our kids to school every day. It's just a little bit of time in the car. They get to come home every day and enjoy a nice, warm education, Jewish education. And we also we even have a couple restaurants that we can enjoy a little drive away, kosher stores, kosher facilities, Judaica stores. So it's, we're fortunate in that way.
Okay, so what are we saw now different things that you showed us for the different holidays and especially during COVID. But what are the regular, like you have a shul, you have a community center. What is the Jewish
okay,
main
so
things?
here in our neighborhood, we have what we call the Chabad Campus of Living Judaism. And we have a shul there. I'll try to pull up a picture soon, a beautiful Chabad shul. And of course, it services the entire community. Everybody is welcome. And we have a wide variety of backgrounds, of levels of Jewish education. Some people have had the opportunity to study, others haven't. They're studying now. Many types of people. We also have a friendship circle. I don't know if you're familiar, if there are friendship circles in your.
No, we don't have it.
Friendship circle it's born here in Michigan with our center right here. It's a community that helps individuals with special needs. And it started off with pairing up teenagers with families with special needs, just so they should be friends. They would go over to their house and visit, hang out for like 30 minutes or an hour, and give the parents a little break because, some of the children with special needs require 100% of your attention 100% of the time. So creating these friendships was a great way to bring the community together. And the success was unbelievable. It brought people together in many, many different ways. It went beyond religious affiliation. It went beyond social status. It went beyond financial status. It just brought people together for a common cause. And that grew and evolved. At one point, the adults said, why are only the teenagers volunteering? We also want to volunteer. So then there became volunteer opportunities for adults. Then, visiting the homes wasn't enough. And we built a beautiful center where children can come and enjoy ballet and music and sports, things that were not available to children with special needs in other venues now became available to them. Always partnered up with a buddy, creating new friendships, creating new lifelong friends. And then the children grew up, the early children, the children that were from the early years of Friendship Circle grew up, and now they're adults and they need jobs. So it evolved, and we created a soul center, which provides art opportunities, different ways for adults to have jobs using their artistic skills. There's also a cafe where they could learn to work in the kitchen or work on the floor. And this, everything is done with a large support of training and friendship. So then they could go out and get a job in the rest of the world. So it really is a very big highlight in our community, especially the many friendships that have been created over the years through this. So that's what we have right here in our thing. And of course, we have a lot of Jewish education classes in our shul. And this year was a big treat for me because I'm always trying to, come up with ways to engage the community and, provide different educational opportunities. So this year, something really fun happened to me. I was offering a class, it was called Reincarnation in Judaism. And there was a lot of interest in the class and many people came and it was very nice. There was one woman who wanted to come to the class and she couldn't make it on the day that I was offering it. So after our little conversation, she says, how would you do it again if I bring a group of friends together? I said, by all means, absolutely. So she got her group of friends together, 12 of her friends, and we started this class again. And it was kind of a bonus for me because I didn't have to do the recruiting. I didn't even have to host the Zoom. She did everything and I came and I was able to teach the class, which was really nice. So the class was supposed to be a series of for 3 weeks. And after the 3 weeks, they said, Itty, you signed up for 3 weeks, but we're signed up for life. We want to keep going. So I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That was really nice because, Torah study and learning together is always a great pleasure. But then that wasn't even the end of it because then I get a phone call from one of their daughters. So most of these women are the same age. They're like, kind of like a group of friends. So their children are all in their 20s. So one of their daughters called and said, Itty, my mom loves your class. Would you make a class for me and my friends? And that's like music to my ear. It's like, oh, wow. She wants a class for her and her friends. She's going to call them. She's going to bring them together in her Zoom. Wow, that's amazing. So she got her friends together and they're like in their 20s. So not everybody lives locally, but they're friends from when they were in school together. So they stay in touch. So that was like, a cherry on top, like, wow, what a great, sweet group of girls to study with every week. And so that's another thing that we have is, educational opportunities.
That's really amazing. Having one group getting another one and another one.
Yeah, God willing, it'll keep up that way. It's definitely a treat for someone who likes to teach is not to have to do the recruiting is very fun.
Yeah, if other people can get the group together, then here you are.
Yeah.
Okay. And okay, so you said the children, they go to school in Oak Park.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They go to school with the Galfriends and the Weingartens.
Yeah,
so they have a lot of your family as their friends.
Yeah, I know that. Well, actually, my sister, one of my sisters, she actually lives in Canada, just across the border, and she travels every day to work. She works in the school, and the children go there to school.
So this year, because the borders were closed, they were allowed to come because they students, and she teaches. So her husband didn't have a job in Michigan. So he had to become a teacher in the school so that he could have an official job in Michigan. So he would be allowed to drive his children to cross the border every day. So he has like a a job. I think he teaches sports. I don't think he was looking for extra preparing, so he does sports so he could give the kids a fun time and be legal and cross the border every day.
Yeah. So it's interesting what you're saying, that it's so spread out in Michigan, the Jewish communities, but still you're all coming together for going to the same schools and going to the same stores, right? Everybody meets really in one place.
Yeah, absolutely. And now for Pesach, actually, a lot of the Chabad centers joined forces, and we're doing something really crazy. It's a theatrical drive-through. This idea was born in LA, so it's a very Californian kind of thing, but we're being brave and bringing it to Michigan. We're renting a garage, an indoor garage where it could be completely dark. And we're setting it up. Let me see if I could pull up a picture. This is like really crazy. Here, I'll just pull this up. Ooh, where'd it go? So we're setting up this garage with lights and theater and action, and people will stay in their car to drive from station to station and eat. Here's this. You drive through, you see this Pharaoh?
Wow.
This is a custom-made blow-up thing. So when you arrive there, you drive, that's something else. Here. You drive through this thing. So you're like coming in to experience the story of Passover. And then as you drive through, there's a little stage set up, and we're having real actors act out the story in segments. So it's a combination of video and actual live acting. You drive through, it takes about 30 minutes. You go to each station, you watch the show. So this way, everyone stays safely in their car, keep moving, and get into the Pesach spirit. And really the reason we're doing this, it's a huge expense, but God willing, you know, there are people that are supporting it and purchasing tickets, so it will work out well. But the reason we were so committed to do it is because, you know, normally we would host big Siddharim with lots of friends. And in Michigan, I don't know how it is in Holland, we can't do that yet. We can't invite friends over. And it's like, oh my gosh, how could you can't either.
We're allowed one person in the house who is not family.
Oh my gosh, that's hard. Who do you pick?
Who do you pick? Right.
It's really, it's, you know, and for somebody that's so involved in Jewish education and Jewish celebration for so many years, you know, we really had to break our heads and say, how are we going to do something special for Passover? And we saw this done in California for Hanukkah. So we said, hey, let's do it here for Pesach. And this way, a couple of days before Pesach, we feel we could get the message out. Pesach's coming, prepare, do something fun with your family, bring the energy home, and celebrate, even though we're still mostly in isolation.
Wow, that's quite an amazing plan. I think for
California.
us here in Holland, this is really like, you know, this is the story you're telling is really America. I still have to see something like this.
I see some of the things on your Facebook page and I'm like, wow, Holland is kicking. I think that your Dutch community is amazing and you create so many amazing opportunities, from those beautiful ceremonies and all the beautiful things. So I don't know, Holland is rocking and rolling.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're asleep or something. Everybody's very busy and everybody is trying their best to provide in the best way what is possible. Just something like this. Yeah, I don't think we even have We don't even have a parking place as big as what you need for this. Everything in
it's
Holland
funny,
is tiny.
The funny thing is that for us, it was very difficult to find a parking structure also for the opposite reason, because Michigan is so wide and spread out. There's so much land that there's no parking structures. Everything is in just parking lots. You don't need to build, like in New York, a parking structure, or in California. So it was really hard, but we finally found one. Because you need the dark room in order to have the effect. So it was worth the effort.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, I see that we're over time, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the next lesson is going to happen today. I didn't see the chief rabbi entering. So in the meantime, is there a message that you would like to give over to all the people who are watching now and who will be watching later?
A message. You know, we're getting ready for Pesach, and Pesach we're celebrating for so many years, but each year I feel like it's important to find a way to connect with the story in a new way and make it a personal journey to freedom. And this year I kind of, actually, thanks to my students in that class of those 20-year-olds, they wanted to explore Jewish feminism. So I said, okay, we're going to look at Pesach and talk about the feminine heroines, the women heroes in the story of Pesach. And we talked about Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh. If you want to know more about her, I'm sure that Sarah will be happy to give you a class. And we talked about Miriam.
1 second, Itty. The ladies need to get all the women together and I'll give the class, okay?
Okay, deal. Who's in charge? We talked about Miriam, who we meet in the Torah as a tiny little girl, and then we meet her again throughout the story of Pesach. And what I learned from both of them is not to allow ourselves to be defined by what's going on around us and what's easy to define ourselves. Batya was a princess she was the daughter of Pharaoh. She had wealth beyond what anybody could ever want. She could have had fame and power and everything, but she looked at the morals and value system and she said, this doesn't make sense to me. I want more out of life than just money and power. And she actually converted to Judaism. From living in the palace of the king, she could have, just had whatever she wanted, but she wanted something deeper and more meaningful. And she went against the tide to do that. And the same thing with Miriam. Miriam was born to a lovely family. I mean, the family of Moshe. Oops. 1 second. Irma, 1 second, please.
You need to go to your next meeting.
Yeah, 1 second. I'll just finish this real quick and then I do, yes. So Miriam, she opened her little mouth to her parents, who were wonderful people. And she said, her parents said, they were going to divorce because they didn't want to have any more children. Life was so tough. And they said, how could we have more children in such a hard time? And Miriam said, what? You're going to sign on self-extermination? We don't do that. That's not how we live. We're going to look for a brighter future. We're not going to define ourselves by what we see around us. We're going to find our inner strength and look for a brighter future. And I was just so fascinated as I was relearning that story. She could have easily just did what everyone around her was doing, but no, she had that feisty energy and that strong faith to find another approach. So I think we're living through very difficult times, amongst so much blessing in our lives. I mean, we're no shortage of comfort in our home. For most of us, there's no shortage of food. We have our telephones. We could call people. There's so much blessing, and there's also very challenging situations. So we could, learn from Batya and from Miriam to look at the bright light, not to be defined by the simple approach around us, but to look deeper and find something even greater. I heard a great expression that tough times don't last, but tough people make it through. And we have to, we have to find that inner strength to get through it and to really focus on the positive.
Wow.
So I want to wish everyone an easy time finding their inner strength. And even if it's not easy, stick to it. It's worth it. It makes things more meaningful in the end. And a Zisem Pesach and a happy Pesach and just joy all around the Nachas.
Thank you so much, Itty. That's so beautiful. And thank you so much for making time in your busy schedule, running from one to the next.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
thank you.
Kosher Veilige Pesach for everybody. I'm actually going to have still one Zoom next week. That will be also very interesting. We'll have someone who is doing archaeology in Jerusalem. So that will be next week. And then we'll be back after Pesach, please God.
All righty, all the best.
Okay,
Be
bye.
Well. Good to see you.
Ik denk dat er geen vervolgles is. Nee, hè?
Nee.
Oké,
ik heb het ook. Nee,
nee,
dat
dacht ik al.
niet aangekondigd in mijn ding in het programma.
Ja, precies.
Bedankt, Sarah. Het was erg leuk.
Dankjewel.
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 Nou,
dan
wens ik iedereen.
Ja.
Sorry?
Het is een hele andere wereld.
Ja. Ik ben er nooit geweest. We willen nog steeds heel graag haar bezoeken, maar ja, dat komt er gewoon niet van. Maar het is gewoon inderdaad, het is zo anders.
900 pakjes.
Ja.
Bijzonder, ja.
Maar het is ook leuk om een keertje zoiets te horen, toch?
Ja.
Een kijkje in een andere wereld bijna.
In een andere keuken.
Een andere keuken. Ja, ik denk dat haar keuken is zo groot als mijn woonkamer.
En de tuin?
Ja, de tuin is waarschijnlijk net zoals het Haagse bos.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem, precies. Iedereen op zijn plek waar die zijn moet. En
met de koiach.
Dat wordt grasmaaien.
Ja. Ja.
Okay.
Dankjewel.
Bedankt iedereen voor weer meedoen.
Dankjewel.
Laila Tov.
Laila Tov.
Laila Tov.
Dankjewel.
Dan ga ik de meeting sluiten.